from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast.
Coming up on Ag Day, what will acreage be next year? USDA is already making a guess. In agribusiness, can cattle prices hold?
110% of last year, pretty good numbers as far as cattle on feed go.
And good deeds don't go unnoticed. Donations from Wisconsin cheesemakers for hurricane relief.
Ag Day, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. After record and near-record grain crops, USDA says they expect that trend to continue. The department releasing its latest long-term forecast for agriculture. Looking at next season, USDA expecting corn and soybean acres to be equal at 91 million acres apiece. Wheat plantings also expected to fall by another million acres down to 45 million. Now on the yield front, USDA is pegging the 2018 corn yield at a conservative 173.5 bushels to the acre. In 2018, an average price of $3.20. Now, soybean yields also conservative at nearly 48.5 bushels to the acre and an average price of $9.40. While wheat yields, however, are expected to climb, USDA putting yields at near 47.5 bushels to the acre there with an average price of $4.60.
It was kind of a surprise to me. I thought that the soybean acre number would be even higher than where it was at and maybe less corn. So to see those numbers come in at 91 million acres, which were neck and neck, the same with each other. And last year, I think the beans were at 90.2 and corn was at 90.4 or vice versa. So it's going to be 2 years now in a row of neck and neck acres. But really, I thought with the price of corn being so low and below cost of production for so many, that we would maybe even see less corn acres.
Over the next 10 years, USDA expecting bean acres to top corn by an increasing amount, with soybean acreage growing by another million acres in the next 4 years. USDA also raising yield expectations. Corn yields forecast to top 191.5 bushels to the acre by the year 2027. Soybeans climbing above 53 bushels to the acre in that time. USDA's final near and long-term projections will not be released until its February outlook report. Brand new data from the Commerce Department is showing the U.S. economy gained even more steam last summer. It grew 3.3% between July and September. The original forecast called for just 3%. President Trump has vowed to get economic growth up above 3% for an entire year. That hasn't happened since 2005. On a global scale, the world economy is growing faster than it has in 7 years, and more people are working. But the high growth isn't expected to last long. That's the forecast from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. The organization, represented by 35 developed nations, it's forecasting growth of 3.6% this year. While the global economy is gaining momentum, the organization sees a red flag.
Indebtedness of households and corporations has reached record levels in many countries. Particularly worrying are the high levels and continued growth of corporate debt levels in China, given the importance of China to the world economy.
Gurria says the high levels of household debt in a number of advanced economies is a big concern. Most of that debt is tied to mortgage lending. OECD predicts sustained growth in the U.S. this year and next, and a sharper than expected increase in the countries that use the euro currency. Nearly 100 members of the National Biodiesel Board are on Capitol Hill this week, encouraging lawmakers to reinstate biodiesel tax incentives. Visits come as the EPA is expected to release its final RFS volumes this week. EPA's July proposal called for a reduction in advanced biofuels, of which biodiesel fills roughly 90%. The USDA is mailing the 2017 Census of Agriculture to producers this week. Conducted once every 5 years, the census aims to get a complete and accurate picture of American agriculture. The data collected in the census is used by farmers, trade associations, researchers, policymakers, and others to help make decisions in community planning, farm assistance programs, farm advocacy, and rural development. Now, the census deadline is February 5th. By the way, it's required by law. Let's turn now to Cindy Clausen. She's in for Mike Hoffman and has a look at what's happening in farm country. Cindy?
Good morning, Clinton. Folks are getting into the Christmas spirit in Williamsburg, Virginia. Their annual illumination will be held this weekend, drawing up to 50,000 people. The event allows people to see how Christmas would have been celebrated during the colonial period. And there's another reason to celebrate in Columbus, Michigan. Scott Dudek sent us a picture of his daughter Taylor, who's overjoyed that harvest is over. Scott said seed corn harvest went well, but the fields are wet. Coming up in just a few minutes, I'll have your national forecast, but for now, here are some hometown temps.
Farm Journal On Air is the go-to app for American agriculture. AgDay, AgriTalk, U.S. Farm Report, and more. 24/7 access to all of your favorite shows, TV and radio. In your hands, on demand. Farm Journal On Air. Download the app today.
We'll talk cattle prices and what the latest cattle on feed report might tell us about 2018. That's coming up next. And in Drovers TV, with meat production approaching record levels, can anything support those cattle prices? And Wisconsin cheesemakers respond with a good deed to help people in need following catastrophic storms.
Receive a free trial of the Daily Grain Plan newsletter from Roach Ag Marketing. Text Roach to 31313. Start your subscription today by texting Roach to 31313.
Agribusiness more green on the charts Wednesday. Let's find out why from our friends on the floor in the CME Chicago.
Today in soybeans, it was unchanged. It really traded both sides of the market today, but the futures consolidated and they remain very firm, up at $9.92. That is very firm. We haven't been able to break through that $10 mark, but the market still remains strong. There needs to be like some new news to give the market a little bit of direction. Now, corn, on the other hand, also was higher. Now, it really bounced off the contract lows, and when it got down to the contract lows, it drew in some bargain hunting, and they really came in pretty feverish and got the market up. So it looks very strong. And we also know that the funds have a big short position, so they're kind of holding the market down. But it's going to take a little bit more news to get this get a follow through selling to push it even lower. And today just was not that day. The market really turned around, just as well as wheat. The wheat market jumped up, and the futures really rebounded off the contract lows. Let's take a look at the feeders, though, because they're also rising, and they had their higher premiums, and that's really positive for the producers. Now, that really lends itself to a little bit more optimism on the horizon. If that continues, then we're going to see feeder cattle and the live cattle market both moving up. That's all from the floor at the CME Group here in Chicago. I'm Virginia McGathy.
Even with December and holiday buying starting to slow down at retailers, cattle prices are hanging tough. Now, can that continue? Tyne Morgan asks a question from the Agribusiness Desk.
Welcome back. Matt Bennett joining us now with Bennett Consulting. Matt, we've got the latest cattle on feed numbers. I mean, it just shows there's really no signs of a slowdown right now. When you look at these numbers on feed, this herd just keeps growing. But at the same time, demand's been pretty good. So do you think demand can keep up with these supply numbers at this point?
Demand's obviously been pretty good. You know, this has been kind of a inverted market for quite some time. You've had a fair amount of, inverse in the market. 110% of last year, pretty good numbers as far as cattle on feed go. But bottom line is, some of these profit margins have actually been really good. The thing that's tough for me is buying feeders right now and then hedging on out on the fats. I mean, it's one of those things where we've still got to take a leap of faith.
So what is your advice right now for cattle producers out there? I mean, prices have been surprising. I think a lot of folks didn't think that we would see the prices that we've seen the latter half of this year. Not sure if that can continue into 2018. So if it doesn't, what can they be doing now?
Well, a lot of the guys that I know, their break-evens are below even some of the deferred months. And so I certainly wouldn't be sitting on my hands. I don't want to take too much for granted because by all means, with these cattle on feed numbers, there's no question that we could end up taking this market down. Now, we are a little bit oversold at the time, but at the same time, these numbers would suggest to me that I don't see any reason why we couldn't slide just a little bit more. So me personally, I want to be locking in profit margins whenever they exist.
So you don't even think that the prices today can hold up at least for this calf crop, or do you?
Well, I think they can hold up to an extent, but I don't want to take too much for granted. I mean, I want to at least hedge a portion of them, because if you don't and you end up sliding more, if you've already had profit on the table, basically you're going to be kicking yourself.
Well, we're in the heat of holiday demand. Thanksgiving is behind us, looking at Christmas. Do we need holiday demand to just keep up with normal pace, or do we need to see a considerable increase in that
Well, I think we're going to have to see an increase over what we saw last year, because basically we've got higher numbers than what we had last year. And I think that that's what the market is assuming, is that this demand is just going to continue to ratchet up just a little bit more and a little bit more. And I think there's no question. People like eating beef. We all know that. Let's just hope that they really like it this year.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. We appreciate it. Stay with us. We'll be back with more Ag Day in just a moment.
For advice on the best way to be profitable on your farm, contact Matt at 217-273-1133. Ag Day, brought to you by Liberty Herbicide, the simply better solution for superior weed control and a stronger yield.
Welcome back to Ag Day. We're Cindy Clausen looking at the weather map. Cindy, if we look at the fronts here, it looks like maybe there's a little bit of precipitation that we can expect in certain parts of the country.
Yeah, and a lot of the nation's midsection will be dry if you have any field work that still needs to be done, but it's kind of the eastern part of the country we're going to be watching. Let's take a look and see how things are shaping up. And we have two fronts that will be affecting the country over the next day or two. One is going to be in the eastern part of the country. That's going to be bringing some rain to areas in the eastern third of the country as that moves on off to the east. High pressure is going to control most of the plain states, so look for some dry weather there. And then we're going to have more wet weather in the Pacific Northwest, actually, as a couple of fronts start to make their way through, bringing some rain and upper elevation snow. Putting this into motion, you'll see that cold front swinging to the east, and far northern reaches right near the border might actually see a little bit of snow, but for the most part this is rain because we've been seeing some milder temperatures. There's that high pressure really taking control of the nation's midsection with some rain and upper elevation snow for the Pacific Northwest. And as we head into your Thursday night and early Friday morning, that front starts to swing out to sea. You start to see that affecting the far eastern parts of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. We'll see that first cold front starting to come into towards the northern plains. A little bit of upper elevation snow there. You got a second front that's approaching the Pacific Northwest. And as we head through the day on Friday, the cold front swings out to sea. You might still see a little bit of rain as it still trails along Florida, but otherwise that high pressure moves on through the Great Lakes area and affects much of the eastern United States. All right, then as we take a look at our precipitation estimates, going to be those two items that we'll be watching. The rain in the eastern part of the country, nothing too terribly heavy. The heavier moisture is going to be in the Pacific Northwest, especially that far northwestern part of Oregon and into British Columbia. All right, as we take a look at the snowfall, that's mainly going to be in the Pacific Northwest, though, those higher elevations. Most in the east is going to be staying north of the border, but we will see a little bit perhaps in parts of New England. As far as temperatures go, we've been on the mild side in a lot of the country. A lot of 40s and 50s across the northern tier of states, 60s and 70s in the south, some 40s off in the Pacific Northwest as well. As we head into those overnight hours, we're going to be seeing temperatures in the 20s and 30s. Normally we see temperatures a little cooler than that, especially in the upper Midwest. 50s and 60s across most of the southern United States. And tomorrow we're going to be seeing maybe a few more 40s sneaking into the eastern part of the country, but overall we're still seeing temperatures near or above normal in a lot of the United States. That's a look at your national forecast. Now let's check on the weather where you live. Forest Park, Montana, sunny and not quite as windy today with a high of 44 degrees. Blackwell, Oklahoma, plenty of sunshine for you with a high of 56. 58 degrees in Oak Hill, Ohio. Rain will be arriving in the afternoon.
All right, can cattle prices hang on in 2018? We'll take a look coming up on our Drovers TV report and see how cheesemakers are digging deep to help families in Texas and Florida struggling to recover after hurricanes upended their lives and homes.
Ag Day, brought to you by Creden soybean seed from Bayer, designed using smart genetics with tailored varieties to fit any field condition. Drovers TV on Ag Day is brought to you by QLF. For 40 years, QLF has been proud to support American farmers that feed the world.
In news from our reporting partners at Drovers, the latest Sterling profit tracker showing feed yards with $90 per head profits last week. The positive move associated with falling break-evens as feed costs continue to drop. Packer margins also in the green at a plus $120 per head. For 2017 as a whole, the Sterling profit tracker is calling for positive gains for feeders and packers. Now, cash profit margins for cow-calf producers are expected to average $136 per cow. Analysts telling the folks over at Drovers that the driving factor behind cattle prices in the new year will be the continued expansion of total red meat and poultry supplies. Now, ample corn supplies at lower prices suggesting more corn will be used to feed hogs and cattle. Beef production in 2018 is now forecast at 27.7 billion pounds, which would be nearly 5% higher than 2017. If that production number becomes reality, it would be the largest amount of beef ever produced in the U.S., surpassing the previous record set back in 2002.
On a per capita basis, U.S. beef consumption in 2018 would total 59.2 pounds on a retail weight basis, about 3.3% more than in 2017. Per capita consumption totals can change based on trade data and production shifts, but if consumption reaches the 59.2 pounds per person projection, it would be the largest year-over-year increase in beef consumption since the mid-1970s.
Henderson says the data is suggesting cattle prices could see pressure in 2018, but much of it will depend on exports. Beef exports were up 11.5% in 2017, and analysts project another 4% increase in sales overseas next year. That should help to support prices. And researchers at Kansas State University have made big gains in the fight against the devastating pig disease commonly known as PRRS. Porcine reproductive and respiratory syndrome costs the pork industry over $600 million a year. It can decimate entire litters of young pigs in a single season. However, a new study at the College of Veterinary Medicine at K-State is demonstrating promising results towards stopping PRRS in its tracks. Researchers found a way to protect offspring from the virus during pregnancy. By blocking a certain genetic protein receptor, mothers are resistant to PRRS and give birth to healthy, normal piglets.
It's just like your front door. You have a handle. The virus grabs the handle and turns it and can get in. And what we did is we removed the handle. It no longer has anything to grab onto.
Roland says the young piglets, though free of PRRS at birth, are not necessarily resistant to PRRS over the course of their lifetime. However, he's optimistic that a piglet born healthy because of this new process would respond better to future PRRS treatments and vaccines. Time and time again, we see how rural America steps up to help people in need, whether it's their neighbors or strangers. With more evidence of that generosity, AgDay continues.
Shop Machine Repeat's Cyber Sale from November 27th to December 4th. Find special reduced price deals on all types of equipment from dealerships across the country. Make a purchase and receive $200 extra holiday cash. Visit www.machinerepeat.com/sale. In the country. Brought to you by Kubota. Learn more about Kubota SSV Series skid steers at Kubota.com or demo one at your local Kubota dealer today.
It's the season of giving, but for many in the agricultural sector, they've been giving for months. Folks from the Wisconsin dairy industry stepped up to help victims of the hurricanes that struck Texas and Florida. In this video from the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board, we meet some of the people responsible for these good deeds.
It all started with a hopeful plea on social media. In the wake of hurricane devastation in Texas and Florida, people wanted some comfort food, and that comfort food was Wisconsin cheese.
We were just deeply saddened by it, and so since our farmers are always so focused on helping, we thought what a great opportunity to use what we have in Wisconsin and give that back to the communities that were so devastated by these hurricanes.
So the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board reached out to a few cheesemakers to see if they would be willing to donate a few pounds of cheese to the relief efforts. Over 45,000 pounds of dairy products were sent to Texas and Florida thanks to the coordinated efforts of the Independent Procurement Alliance Program, or IPAP, and Midwest Refrigerated Systems, who safely delivered the cheeses.
Our tagline is Midwest Values, Nationwide Service. So we're shipping Wisconsin food manufactured products, cheese, dairy products all over the country. Just a perfect way for us to go to action.
It was a great opportunity to showcase the strengths of Wisconsin's cheese program and the opportunity in working with farmers and cheesemakers to contribute to a situation like that.
And all that cheese was a huge comfort to the folks trying to gather some semblance of normalcy in storm-battered areas.
Well, it was pretty exciting because, as you know, they don't have a lot of cows and they don't have a lot of cheese down there. And so to bring in a fresh product like cheese is a comfort food, and it was very widely accepted.
Just a few days after the storm, they were still in major recovery mode. We sat it out and got the cheese safely delivered and into the right hands so it could get to the people that needed it.
And that's Wisconsin Dairy News.
Both IPAP and Midwest Refrigerated Services donated time and shipping services as they were gearing up for one of the busiest holiday seasons of the year, with both efforts within weeks of each other. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your day with us. For Cindy Clausen and all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.
AgDay, brought to you by Ram Commercial, America's longest lasting heavy-duty pickups.